This was the beginning when Mercedes started to deliver cars out of the middle class segment. They call it W201, or maybe you better remember the name 190. They started with that car in 1982 and it was a great success, even though some real Mercedes fans said, oh, just a baby Mercedes. But overall, they sold more than 1.8 million units until they stopped production in 1993. But today we're going to talk about the car that follows on that one, the brand new C-Class. When the C-Class hits the market, there's a whole bunch of different engines available for the car. Very important, all four-cylinder engines are brand new. With the diesels, they offer a power range between 122 up to 184, which then is the C220D, the car we're driving. With the petrol engines, they offer between 129 up to 333 horsepower. Very important, all of these engines are four-cylinder engines except the C400. This is a V6. But to put something on top, there is of course an AMG version, which is the C43 AMG, and that then offers 390 horsepower.
According to Mercedes, the new diesel engines of the C-Class meet all legal requirements. Those who are still not sure should continue to follow the topic closely.
Our test car, the C220D Estate, is featuring a 2-liter 4-cylinder diesel engine, and that offers 400 newton meters of maximum torque, 194 horsepower, and is combined with a 9-speed automatic gearbox. Regarding to the gearbox, it's very important that this is not a double clutch system, it's a standard automatic gearbox, and this is why you really have a few seconds between shifting if you're driving with a bit more throttle. But this is nothing unusual, it's only unusual if you're used to a double clutch system. The car is featuring different drive modes. You can have comfort as well as sport or sport plus, and of course an eco mode. But very important with that car is they do not spread so much, which means if you're driving comfort and you change into sport, yes, you will feel a bit more stiffness regarding to the suspension as well as to the steering wheel, and of course the engine is a bit more agile, but that's it. It's not that the car starts to change into a sporty car. So it's very important here, even in Sport Plus, the car is still very comfortable. So next to me is Patrick Havik. Patrick is responsible for the powertrain integration into that C-Class, and he's my expert when we talk about small engines in bigger cars. Patrick, you now have a 1.5 liter engine here at the C-Class, a petrol engine, and my simple question is, how could such a small engine work with such a, let's say, powerful or big car?
We had the C200 with a 2-liter and 135 kilowatts, and this engine had a really good performance. And now we thought about to cultivate this good performance and to make a further fuel reduction. So what we have done, we implemented a BSG. It's a belt-driven starter generator, and this belt-driven starter generator is able to boost on the first meters when you start with your car, and it leads up to a torque of around about 160 newton meters. So a 1.5 has a little bit less torque due to its lower capacity, and the BSG gives us this high torque. So you have a really good performance when you start driving. One further aspect is the new turbocharger. It's a so-called twin turbocharger. And well, in this twin turbocharger, we use the single impulses of the cylinder. So the impulses are not mixed up, they go directly on the turbine, and so we have a higher torque at low and medium RPMs. And in the end, we also fulfill this 135 kilowatts as we used to have only with this 1.5.
When we talk about fuel consumption and reduction of fuel consumption, about how much do we talk?
Well, we are talking about round about 15 grams CO2 or 0.6 liters. Well, it depends on the certification in the end. But I already mentioned some technology. We have further technology aspects. For example, we introduced a Chemtronic. A Chemtronic means that we are able to drive with a small small stroke of the valves. So, and if you have a small stroke of the valves, then you can fully open the throttle, and that means you have less throttle loss in your engine. Further aspect is that we have an electrical water pump that only pumps the water when cooling is needed. Up to 70 degrees centigrade water temperature, the water is standing still and it's really cooling on demand. Last but not least, we implemented a new trumpet honing. Trumpet honing, what does it mean? The diameter of the cylinder is down a little bit enlarged. The form is like a trumpet. And when the piston goes down, then the friction is reduced up to 60%. So that really helps us. And so we have a lot of elements which in the sum help us to reduce the fuel, as I already mentioned.
The 48-volt system together with the starter generator makes it possible to recover energy while braking, and also ensures an almost imperceptible restart of the engine after the so-called sailing.
Regarding to the suspension and the steering of the car, that car really gives you a direct contact to the road, but it's still extremely comfortable, and the steering is very precise but without any stress. So it's really a car that you can drive for long distances, really relaxing. What I really like with the car is you always feel very safe and secure in the car, and even if you drive the car a bit more quick on the road, like on the motorway, it's still very quiet in here. It is so quiet that if you really relax and drive easy through the countryside, there are moments where you can't even hear the engine anymore. If you want to push the C220D a bit more, that works quite well, but there is not so much power, which means if you drive fast on a motorway and you want to accelerate, let's say from 100 kilometers per hour up to 200, that really takes a bit of a moment. But on the other hand, you will reach the top speed definitely. And what I really like is even then the car is still quite quiet and absolutely easy to control and very comfortable. Driving this C-Class through, let's say, hard turns a bit more fast works perfectly, but the suspension then still delivers, let's say, a bit more of a soft touch. It's not as hard as some other cars where you really feel every single bit on the road. It's a typical Mercedes suspension, which means it's still comfortable, but precise enough to give you the feeling of being safe and secure on the road.
The consumption of our C220D is declared with just under 5 liters by Mercedes. During our test drive we used 7.4 liters per 100 kilometer driven.
The exterior of the C-Class has only slightly changed. The car now features new taillights, but the rest, that happens here at the front of the car. It now features a slightly more modern grille and a new front bumper, now with this chrome part down here. But the real change are the new headlamps. They come as standard with halo and LED daytime running lights, but you can also order full LED lights. If you want to have the top system, then you order the multi-beam LED lights with ultra range full beam on board. But the rest of the car, regarding to the exterior, is the same as before.
Each of the multi-beam LED headlights features 84 high-performance LED chips. The individually controllable LEDs provide perfect light without dazzling other road users. The ultra-range high beam reaches the maximum permitted light intensity and falls below the reference value of 1 lux only after 650 meters.
At the interior of the car there are some obvious changes. One thing is the steering wheel, which now offers these touch sensors here, but I think more important is now the C-Class for the first time features optionally a full digital cockpit, and that then features a 12.3-inch display where you can choose which kind of look you want to have. You can choose between 3 different looks. And the other very obvious thing is you can have an up to 10-inch screen here at the center console. What you can't have is, like with the A-Class, the full widescreen one, which is glass covered, but that's it. The number of colors you can choose from with the ambient light inside the car has changed. In the past there were only 3 colors available, now there are 64. Regarding to the space inside of the car, nothing has changed compared to the predecessor, which means for me and my co-pilot, we do have plenty of space, sit comfortable here, and importantly, behind me there's still some place left.
The new C-Class features improved camera and radar systems and is now able to drive semi-autonomously in even more situations. Now, for instance, it automatically reduces speed before turns or roundabouts, and also it offers automatic overtaking on highways like the S-Class. Unfortunately, not on board is the new infotainment system MBUX with its intuitive voice control. This at the moment remains reserved for the A-Class.
Till now I drove, let's say, the more conservative versions of the new C-Class, but from now on I will have more fun because now I'm starting with the AMG. In principle, we do find inside of the C43 AMG the same new stuff that we do already know from the new C-Class. But there are some add-ons because we're talking about an AMG. The first thing is we do have the AMG Sport steering wheel inside of the car, but I think more important is there is a special mode, a super sports mode for the AMG full digital cockpit. And within that one, the ref meter is the central point of it and is surrounded by driving data. So that really provides you with the information that you may want to have if you want to drive the car a bit more sporty. The V6 3-liter engine of the C43 AMG delivers 390 horsepower, which is, by the way, 23 more than with the predecessor, and on top of it, a maximum torque of up to 520 Newton meters. The extra power comes from a bigger turbocharger. That's the most important bit. That is combined with a 9-speed automatic gearbox, which now shifts even quicker than with the predecessor. And very important with this car is the power distribution, because we do have 69% to the rear axle and only 31% to the front axle. And that gives you that typical driving performance and driving style of an AMG. Of course, the exterior design of the AMG model looks a bit different to the standard C-Class. When you look at the front, you now find a new grille, which normally features only the V8 models, but this car is a V6. On top of this, we do have a different bumper, a lot more sporty, with a different spoiler and larger air intakes at the car as well. But the big change is at the rear of the car, because in the past we have had two big pipes, which were split in half, but now we do have two double pipes, which means four really nicely pipes at the rear, and that really makes the car stand on the road quite solidly.
In addition to the T-model and the coupe that I tested, the convertible and the sedan were also given the facelift.
Of course, the AMG model offers different drive modes as the standard C-Class, but there is a bit of a difference in here, because when you change from, let's say, comfort to sport or to sport plus, you can really feel every single step. There is a big step inside of these different levels. And that doesn't only mean that you feel the steering is a bit more stiff or the suspension is a bit more stiff. You can really feel the whole car is changing its behavior, and this is something which I really like, because that car delivers you from comfort to super sport and extra crisp the whole range.
AMG indicates the consumption of the C43 with 9.8 liters per 100 kilometers. Despite some fairly fast driving, our average fuel consumption was around 11.5 liters.
One thing that I don't like so much with the AMG are the seats. No misunderstanding, I absolutely love the seat itself because it gives you a lot of comfort and a lot of support on the other hand. But what you can't do is you can't do the seat as upright as with a standard model. And this is something which I really like while driving. So there I have to say, this is not perfect.
The 156 horsepower C-Class base model C180 costs just over 37,000 euros in Germany. For comparison, the Audi A4 2-liter TFSI Ultra with its 190 horsepower petrol engine starts at 36,800 euros. And a BMW 318i with its 156 horsepower is available from 33,400 euros.
That was my first test drive with the brand new Mercedes C-Class. What I can say now is that car is what you expect from a C-Class, but a bit more modern regarding to the architecture of the car, especially when we talk about the infotainment and when we talk about the driver safety and assistance systems, because they are now at the level of the new S-Class. What I really like is the variety and range of the engines, because you can have a very small engine, very fuel efficient, up to the top version, the C43 AMG at the moment. If you want to buy one of those, they start a bit above 42,000 euros, but if you want to have the top version, you have to take about 20,000 euros more into account.